you know it's time. IAfootball is back, and we've got you covered with everything from the biggest hits to the biggest runs, from in-game highlights to post-game breakdown.
We are here talking any and all high school football.
From day one all the way to the dome, we've got you covered at IAfootball.
Welcome into the IA Sports Studio. It is week 2 across the Iowa high school football scene. Cade Nissen joined alongside Nick Fox again in the IA Sports Studio. It's a Wednesday during Iowa high school football season, which means only one thing. We've got new locks and dogs coming your way. I've gotten some really nice comments about how you guys enjoy this type of stuff. I appreciate you for tuning in. And without further ado, let's get into a few quick announcements that I have for you. Again, locks and dogs coming today. Preseason all IA football teams are on Rockfin. First team, second team, third team, offense and defense for all 7 classes. Again, a lot of work being put into that. That's over on Rockfin. We got more stuff coming on Rockfin in the next few weeks. District predictions, more positional rankings, all that good stuff. Other announcements as well. Advertisement spots still open. If you want to grow your brand alongside ours, we have plenty of opportunities still open, still available. Again, help your brand grow alongside the IA football. We're just getting started here, year 2 at IA football. Also, if you're watching this, drop a like and subscribe. Again, I'll say it again. I say it every single time. Hit that little bell on our YouTube page after you subscribe. It'll send you a post notification every time we throw a new video up. I don't post the links after every time we post. So those people that you have those notifications on are the first ones to these videos, and they're the first ones to see this type of content. So it's totally free, and I 100% recommend you doing it. You'll just get to our content a lot faster than everybody else. Let's recap, Nick, how we did. Oh, I just revealed that. Well, whoops. CR5 picks a little early, but here's how we did last week. Nick and I, as you can see, perfect 7-0 each of us did on the lock side of things, and each of us hit 3 dogs. Nick, I'd say it's a pretty solid week. I'm not going to expect every week to be like that.
No, yeah, I think we got a little bit lucky on some of those in the first week, but I think definitely the key to going forward is trying to get like 3 or 4 dogs. Try and be happy. I'd be very surprised if one of us went perfect on a dogs at any point this year.
That's got to be some type of reward. If you hit all 14, that's crazy. A lot of close games even in these. Even some of these locks were really close games on Nick and I's side. That's what makes this really fun. We hope you enjoy this. Again, for entertainment purposes only, as you join us for locks and dogs in week 2. Here we go. Class 5A locks and dogs week 2. I'm rolling with Linn-Mar over CR Wash. A nice opening win for the number 10 ranked team in Class 5A. They blanked Dubuque Senior 50-0. Stone Morgan running things under center. Dylan Mazinski had 4 rushing touchdowns as well. I'm rolling with Linn-Mar to keep to stay strong in week 2. And my dog, I'm rolling with Iowa City High unranked versus a Liberty team that just got into the Class 5A rankings for winning in a shutout over Iowa City West. Nick will talk about West here in a little bit, but I was really impressed with Liberty. Put up a ton of points. Really entertaining team over there, and I think that's going to be a really good game, back and forth. I just like Iowa City High on their home field, coming off a game over in Illinois against Joliet Catholic, one of the better teams in that state. So that's a team that's going to be well prepared, and it's their Iowa debut here in week 2. So I'm rolling with Iowa City High.
All right, my lock for this week, I'm going the Des Moines-Lincoln Rail Splitters. They're taking on Des Moines East this week. They had a tough loss against Des Moines Roosevelt last week, and they had some really good performances in that one for Roosevelt. But I think Des Moines-Lincoln, I think they're going to get back on their feet this week. Javon Sanders, I'll be looking at him. He had 23 carries, 155 yards on the ground. So yeah, I'll be looking for the Rail Splitters to catch themselves and get their first win of the season against Des Moines East, who's already got their first of the year. And my dog this week, I'm going Iowa City West, like you mentioned. Lost just a huge scoring battle against Liberty last week, 56-45. And I think City West, I think they're going to come back, get their first win of the year. Jack Wallace, he had 239 yards to the air, 4 total touchdowns. Performances like that, you got to have performances like that against the CIML team in Urbandale. So give me Iowa City West Trojans to take a win this week.
Perfect. 4A dog. I'm rolling with Pella. Got a nice opening win against Ballard in a ranked versus ranked matchup last week. Now they got Kia Cook. Colin Kent leading the helm. He had a touchdown. Emmanuel Deers also had 92 yards and a rushing touchdown. You just love the physicality that Pella plays with. And coming off a ranked win and a really good RPI builder in week 1, I like their odds in Kia Cook. I like the Kia Cook squad too. They got some pieces returning back last year. But Pella in their home opener in week 2, I just like them a little too much as my lock. And my dog, a really big matchup this week. Norwalk and Indianola, 2 ranked teams in Class 4A. Number 11 versus number 5-6 is where Indianola sits. And last week for Norwalk, we talked about Eli Robbins and how he's just such a threat receiving wise. But last week he ran for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Dominic Tigner also ran for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So 200-yard backs from last week returning. Again, that's one of the bigger games in the entire state of Iowa this week. Norwalk at Indianola. I'm going to roll with the lower-ranked team in the Warriors to come out on top there.
All right, and I'm going for my lock this week in Class 4A. Number 1, Lewis Central. They take on Creston this week from 3A. Titans took care of business last week against ranked rival Harlan, 31-10 in that win. Brady Hetzel, he picked up right where he left off from last season, 220 yards through the air. 2 touchdowns also through the air. So Lewis Central, they're looking like they're going to be just as good as they were last season, maybe even a little bit better. Crescent, they got the best of them last season. They had that really good team last year. They made it to state, and I think this year, Lewis Central is going to get back at them and get some revenge from last year. My dog for this week, I'm going CCA. They're unranked in 4A. They're taking on I'd say arguably a rival. They play just about every year. And they've got Solon, number 2 in the 3A rankings. CCA, they had a really nice win last week against Marion. They're looking really good. Solon, they played Assumption last week. They also looked very good. Conlon Poynton, he was a former Solon running back from last season, now at CCA. He got some reps at quarterback. He got some reps at running back. He looked really good in their win. So give me the Clippers to pull off a huge win this week against a pretty dominant Solon team.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. A lot of juice in that Clear Creek Amana versus Solon game for sure. Off to 3A, where I'm rolling with Independence. Nick and I have talked about this team a lot. Had a nice opening win against North Fayette Valley, 42-14. One of the more potent offenses in the entire class, and that's thanks to E.J. Miller. He threw for 282 and 3 touchdowns. And Brady Kurt was the man. 10 catches, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was also a massive impact maker on defense as well. 7 total tackles, a sack. I believe he had an interception as well. He did. It was a pick 6 actually. So Brady Kurt, one of the more underrated performances in week 1. They've got Crestwood this week. I like Indy to keep it rolling. And my dog this week, I love Bondurant Farrar, but Grinnell and Bondurant Farrar in 4A, I should say, Grinnell is playing up a class, and I like Grinnell a lot. Brady Kaufman under the helm had a nice opening week 1 win versus Center Point Urbana. He threw for 3 touchdowns. I think Grinnell is a sleeper team in Class 3A. Brock Heischman, 4 catches, 117, and 3 touchdowns last week for him. I think this could be a sneaky good game. Obviously, going to Bondurant Farrar is not easy to win there. But for my dog, I'm rolling with Grinnell, an unranked team in 3A, taking off a ranked team in 4A.
All right, my lock for this week, I'm going to number 6, Mount Vernon. They take on Union Community. Mount Vernon, they picked up a win last week against ranked Monticello from Class 2A. Last week, they had quarterback Kelvin Haverbach, 220 yards and a pair of touchdowns in that win against Monticello. Mount Vernon, they lost Joey Romberg from last year. He was a star in Iowa high school football. So it was going to be interesting to see how they bounce back, and it looks like Kellen could be a potential star for them. Just another one of those great quarterbacks that we might see, and this will be a great test for them against Union Community, looking to start the year off 2-0. And for my dog this week, this is going to be a really tough one. I think this is going to be a really close game. I've got number 1 from Class 3A Williamsburg taking on number 4 from Class 4A, the Xavier Saints. Last season, Williamsburg picked up the 1-point win against this very talented Xavier team. Grant Hawker picked up 265 yards and 6 touchdowns in the win against number 16 West Branch last week. Race Heitman, he's really showing off on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball, putting up great numbers on both sides. So I think I told Cade before the show, I think this is the only chance I'm going to get this year to pick Williamsburg as a dog. So I'm going to try and put my chips on Williamsburg to take a huge win this week against a very dominant Xavier team.
I was gonna say, if that Williamsburg Xavier game is anything like it was last year, we're in for a treat. But now that should be an incredible game. To 2A, I'm rolling with PCM as my lock. This team's got one of the more potent run games, not only in the class but in the entire state. Adrian Robbins is back. Gavin Van Gorp is back. Van Gorp's the quarterback. He can run and throw. Ran for 100, threw for 100 last year. Adrian Robbins, I believe, was one of the top rushers in the entire state of Iowa last year. One of the only few guys to run for 2,000 yards. He ran for 118 and 2 touchdowns last year. This team's extremely dominant, and they look the part against a good Sigourney Keota team in a class below them. So I like PCM a lot. Our 2A ranker has said multiple times how this is one of his favorite teams to cover in Class 2A. So PCM, I'm going to roll with them as my lock. My dog, rolling with Northeast. They opened up with a win over Bellevue. Now they go up and they play a 3A team in Central DeWitt. Should be a tough task. 2 unranked teams, but rolling with the Class 2A team here. And the name to know for them is Gavin Kramer. He was up for our Player of the Week nominee on Facebook in the voting pool. He had 9 total touchdowns last week, 297 rushing yards, 155 passing yards. He passed for 3 touchdowns. He ran for 6 touchdowns. He's put himself up there with the elite in Iowa high school football ranks this year. So I'm going to roll with Northeast. I'm going to roll with the hot hand and Gavin Kramer and company to lead the way against Central DeWitt.
All right, and I've got a couple of 2As playing 3As for my locks and dogs this week. My lock this week, I'm going number 1, Spirit Lake against Sioux Center. Spirit Lake, they took a very, very close game with Algona. They're number 3 in Class 3A now. 42-40 in that one. They looked really good against a very good Algona team. Caden Lunt passed for 225 yards and 4 touchdowns. And how about Bodie Higgins picking up 10 tackles in that close game? So give me Spirit Lake. They tripped a little bit in the first week against like I said, a very talented team. I think that they can bounce back playing another 3A team this week. And for my dog, I'm going number 10 Central Line George Little Rock against number 10 from 3A MOC Floyd Valley. The Dutchmen, they picked up a win against Unity Christian last week. However, Central Line George Little Rock, they fell by 1 point to a very good Emmitsburg team. So no stats in the book for the Lions from last week's loss. But nonetheless, I think Central Line George Little Rock, I still think that they're a good team. I think they're a team that can make a postseason run. And I think that this will be kind of a redemption week, kind of correct themselves and get themselves back on the right foot of things going forward for this season. And I think this would be a pretty good momentum catcher for the Lions. So give me Central Line George Little Rock to pick up a win this week against MOC Floyd Valley.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell now, but I think Emmitsburg might be back.
Yeah,
I think Emmitsburg is a really, really good team, a class below them. Moving on to 1A, though, speaking of, I'm rolling with AHSTW as my lock versus Riverside. Riverside, a really good Class A team. A little scary here. Riverside put on a show in their Week 1 performance, but I like AHSTW a lot. I like their quarterback, Camden Suckup. We talked about him before. He's one of the better returning quarterbacks in this class. He ran for 2 touchdowns, passed for 150, ran for 126 last year. They looked really good in a win over Tri-Center. And as you can see, I'm rolling with Tri-Center as my dog as well because I liked how they looked against AHSTW. I think those are 2 quality teams in Class 1A. Tri-Center, I should say now, going on the road to Trainer. That's tough first few games for Tri-Center. Obviously, Trainer's number 11 in this class right now. But I liked what I saw. A.J. Harder, sophomore quarterback, youthful guy. He threw for 181 yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns last week. He had 2 picks. He's going to want to fix that. But I like the balanced attack. Carter Coons as well, rushing the football. I think this is a deep team. Zach Nelson holding 118 receiving yards last week in Tri-Center. I'm going to roll with them to go on the road and take down a good trainer team.
All right, for my lock this week, I'm going to go with number 4, OABCIG, taking on East Sac County. OABCIG, they're starting the year off hot with a 47-20 win over Esterville. Bryson Kohler, senior for OABCIG, picked up 306 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air in that win. They looked like a really good team. They've got a little bit of some family fame in there with the Jeans. They've come up in the college world because of obviously Cooper DeJean. They're just a great team overall. It's not just the Jeans guys. This is a really talented team. I think that they can come up with another win, start the year off 2-0. So give me OABCIG to take on the win this week. I'm looking for West Branch and Bound. I can't find it. I'm going to take West Branch for my dog this week over number 7 Dyke New Hartford. West Branch, they started off the year. They had a tough pull with Williamsburg in week 1. They took the loss on that, but they take on Dyke New Hartford. They had a pretty close loss last week to start the season, so I'm going to take West Branch to pull off a huge upset, and that would be a huge upset if they can pull it off. Give me West Branch to shock the state.
Yeah, it was really hard to gauge West Branch. They faced one of the better teams in the entire state of Iowa in Williamsburg, so tough to tell. Obviously, they go from Williamsburg to Dyke New Hartford, right. So a tough 1-2 for West Branch to start off the year. Moving on to Class A, rolling with South Winneshiek. I got 2 teams, I believe, that both suffered a loss in week 1, if I'm not correct. Oh, Kingsley Pearson actually won, I'm sorry. But South Winneshiek, they lost a really close one to Starma in week 1, actually earned themselves a spot in the top 16 with the loss just because of how close it was and how highly our Class A ranker thinks of Starma and the Stars. But they got North Butler this week, and South Winneshiek, Braden Todd at the helm, junior quarterback. He looking really good. Obviously, he looked good last year as well. Kyle Kubashek ran for 81 yards last week as well. It's a team that's going to run the ball a ton. 34 attempts on the ground last week, only 8 through the air. They're going to keep it on the ground. They're going to keep the clock rolling. I've always liked how South Winneshiek plays. Aiden Palafix also added 10 tackles as well. Love shouting out the defensive guys. Moving on to my dog, Kingsley Pearson, Logan Magnolia. These 2 teams have the exact same logo. I think it's always kind of funny when these 2 teams play. Logan Magnolia, I've talked about them before. I love how this team plays. I think it's a tough matchup. They just keep the ball on the ground so much. But I do like Kingsley Pearson, what they bring back. Had a nice win over Alta Aurelia last week. Landon Howe, the new guy under center for them, the junior, he threw for 197 yards last week. They're going to want to run the ball a little more effectively, only 2.5 yards per carry for Kingsley Pearson last year. But they got some dual threat ability. They can throw it. Kevin Wright had 146 yards receiving last week for Kingsley Pearson. So I'm going to roll with the Panthers to pull off a pretty big upset if they can take down a top 10 team in Logan Magnolia.
I did notice that looking through Bound that they had the same logo. It is confusing when we're making the graphics.
Just different colors. Yeah.
My lock this week, I'm going to go number 3 Madrid against Martinsdale St. Mary. No Preston Wicker last week for Madrid in their close loss to Woodward Granger. I'm going to assume that he's going to be coming back here in the near future. I still think this Madrid team is really good regardless of Wicker being there. They had 245 team rushing yards last week with 4 rushing touchdowns. I'm going to look for the Tigers to bounce back this week. Like I said, we're still waiting to see if Wicker maybe comes back this week. If he does, I think that this could be a pretty handed win for the Tigers. So give me Madrid for my lock this week. My dog, big time game. We've got number 8 Earlham going up against number 1 ACGC, and that's going to be my dog pick, number 8 Earlham, to try and topple down the number 1 team. Caleb Smith, he had 237 yards and 3 touchdowns in their win last week against Central Decatur. So I think that if Caleb Smith can have a game like he did last week, I think this could be a really good game, a really close game. Both of these teams do not throw the ball very
I
often.
was gonna say the clock's gonna be rolling in that game.
It is a combined 14 pass attempts for both of these teams last week. So if you really like hard nose or running the ball right up the middle, go to this game. It's going to be a fun one, and I'll be interested to see how that turns out.
Yeah, turnovers are going to be key in that game just because your possessions are going to be so minimal. If the clock's going to be rolling the whole time, that game might be over before the sun sets over there in Adair. Moving on to Class 8-man though, where quite the opposite. A lot of throwing, a lot of incompletions, a lot of clock stoppages in the 8-man games. For my lock though, I'm going to roll with Don Bosco, who's a team that actually loves to run the football in Class 8-man, and they had probably one of the bigger wins in Class 8-man last week, toppling Gladbrook Rhinebeck. I'm going to roll with them again this week. Kyler Knack, under helm, he threw for 99 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 74. Vincent Pranger also ran for 98. Really balanced offense. It's just a hard-nosed team out there at Don Bosco. They earned a really big win over a team they lost to last year. They're happy with that, and now they get to come home again, and they got Central El Cater. For my dog, I'm rolling with Colonesco. I know Audubon's really good. Audubon's coming off a win over a top 5 team in Cam. But I think Colonesco is a little underrated in Class 8-man. They've already got 2 games under their belt, and both those wins went 60-0 and 48-0. So they have not allowed a single point yet. Obviously, another 8-man team that likes to run the ball, and the guy to know is Brecken Klatt. Already 300 yards rushing on the season for him, 7 touchdowns as well. And Audubon also as well, another team that likes to run the football. So this is a game. This is another game that might have the clock rolling a lot. I think this could be a sneaky good game in Class 8-man. I think a lot of people are probably writing Colonesco off, but I think it's a sneaky team that Audubon you need to wake up for, you need to compete against.
All right, my lock for this week, I'm taking BGM over Twin Cedars. BGM, they are coming in with one of the best players in 8-man, number 12 in the rankings. This week, Bo Burns, he is getting off to a hot start 2 games into the season. He's got 461 passing yards, 334 rushing yards, 10 passing touchdowns, 7 passing touchdowns. You get the idea. This guy's the real deal. He puts on a show every week. I think that it's going to be no different this week for BGM. I think that they're going to have just more video game numbers for that kid. He is really talented and fun to watch, so give me BGM as my lock. My dog, I think in terms of 8-man this week, this is the place to be.
Yeah.
Iowa Valley, number 10 against number 5, Waco. Iowa Valley has arguably one of the best players in the state. Nolan Kriegel, a sophomore. We've posted about him putting up some crazy stats. And I think that if he can do just that against this Warriors team, that they could pull off an upset. Waco's going to be no easy game for the Tigers, but I think if anybody has a chance, I think it's Iowa Valley with this team and this player that they've got in Nolan Kriegel. I think it's going to be a great game, so give me Iowa Valley to pull off an upset.
Yeah, Waco is a team that likes to throw the football in Class 8-man too. Clayton Miller leading the class in passing yards right now, so that could be a really fun game.
Right,
that could be another one where we've got 2 guys scoring up close to double-digit touchdowns. That one's going to be a ton of fun over there. But we thank you for joining us today. Locks and Dogs Week 2. Drop us a comment whether you agree, disagree. What are you thinking? Maybe one that we missed. A ton of good games across the state this week. We'll be around the Iowa high school scene at certain games. Be sure to drop us a follow on all our social medias. We'll have you covered every Friday night and even into Saturdays. Again, IAfootball is the place to be for your Iowa high school football coverage. Appreciate you for tuning in.